Hello and welcome back to the channel with me, the Orienteering Kid, where today we're in Lawrenceville for the second round of the World Orienteering Day Torus series. Yes, we are here for the second event in this week-long series celebrating World Orienteering Day, a day promoting orienteering all around the world. And this series, if you don't know already, can be found on the Tempo simulator, the link to which can be found in the description of this video. Now, as we said before, we're going to be in Lawrenceville today in the United States of America for a course set by Julia Zielsinka, with her advisors today being Claire Durand and Libor Forst. Now, we obviously know who Libor is. He built this simulator and is a very keen Trelo competitor. And I've seen Claire's name bounced around a few times as well with a couple of these events. However, I don't think I've ever seen Julia set an event here, so it should be interesting to see what her style of course setting is, and if it's anything like the event on Wednesday, I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. So let's just jump straight into it now. We're going into the World Orienteering Day Torus series section, and we're going into event 2, which today is a 1 to 4,000 map with no size of contours, which is quite unusual, so we'll have to see why that is later on. We have 8 stations with a 30-second penalty for every wrong answer, and the zero tolerance is 4 meters or 135 degrees for side problems, and that's making me think there might actually be at least one side problem in this event, so we're going to have to keep checking for that. We're on a campus terrain, so that's some sort of school or university, so it's going to be quite urban, and the instructions are that contours are added manually where necessary to show terrain. So that's why there hasn't been a height distance named between contours, because they've just been added manually and they'll be quite rough. So we're just going to have to use them for the shape of the land and not to try and accurately place some of the kites. And we also have the black X symbol used for benches and picnic tables. I'm sure that will become useful for parts of the event, but this does seem very interesting at the moment, and I'm excited to just get straight into it. As always, my answers will be appearing in the top right hand corner of the screen, so you can see exactly what I'm putting, correct or wrong, with the black or red letters respectively at the moment that I do. And yeah, with that, let's have a go at this second event in this World Orienteering Day Torus series. And here is Station 1. Okay, building and the running track, trees, Bravo's on the tree, there's the running track, so the bench, that end is going to be Alpha, and coming back here there is nothing on there. That wall though does seem to have Echo on its end, and then that tree is the wrong side, and that hedge is going to be Delta to finish off. And I was right, there is definitely at least one side problem in this day, being Bravo or 0 on the tree. Bravo was definitely on the eastern side and we wanted the western, so that was a very clear 0 for me. But the rest of the tasks did seem alright there. The view was a bit tricky, but I was able to pick out the picnic bench to start with, wanting the western end, and that threw me slightly because on a black cross I would normally want side. However, it is a bench, so I guess it does have an end. And the second task, going out the photo, was definitely a clear 0 before we then came to Echo and also Delta on the hedge later on in the station. And that was a good opening station. I'm glad I noticed that side problem. That could have caught quite a few out, but we will continue to keep an eye out for those as we go into Station 2. Okay, 2 trees seem to be between trees there. Look at the building and the ramps though. Between those 2 trees is going to be Bravo. That corner is Foxtrot, and back there is nothing, as in that tree is Alpha, and there for Delta to finish off the station as well. And we've hit another 12-second station, like in the first event in this series, but I did think that was quite a simple station, with Alpha, Bravo and Charlie on the left hand side in that line of trees, and then Delta, Echo and Foxtrot on the right hand side as well. That first task wanting between the first 2 trees, because I'd noticed Alpha and Bravo were between the 3, and I knew Charlie was just between the trees in the path, because there was no way another tree was fitting in there, we would have seen it. I knew Bravo was the answer straight away there before we went across to Foxtrot in the corner of the open land, and then back to the inside corner of the building, but I'd looked at Echo and seen that it was on an outside corner of the building rather than the inside, and so we wanted it past Echo into the corner, which was definitely a 0, and then coming back to Alpha and Delta to finish off that station. I thought that was quite a nice and easy one, and I'm very happy with that time there. But that was another good station, and we'll just move straight on now into the next one, which is Station 3. Okay, trees, notice the side of the tree and the staircases as well, that's the second and third. Up there on that building we cannot see, whereas that is Alpha. That tree is going to be Foxtrot. That tree up there, can I believe it's there? I don't think it is. I think that's the wrong tree, and that staircase is Charlie. And it was that fourth problem there which made me think a lot as to whether it's going to be Delta or 0 on the trees at the back, and my immediate thought was it was going to be a 0 because I didn't think Delta was in quite the right place, and I'm still confident with that now. So the tree that Delta was on, I believe, was in line with the staircase, and we wanted one slightly to the left. That may have been an error with the angles though, and we'll have to check that afterwards, but I am confident that that is a 0, not Delta. The first task being a 0 on the corner of the building was quite clear to me because I'd seen the staircases with Alpha and Bravo on, and they were definitely not on the building where the first task was, and I could clearly see the area we were actually in. So I was quick to 0 that and then go for Alpha, as I'd taken note and counted those stairs along beforehand. We also had Foxtrot on the tree, and I checked the side, but it was definitely the correct side, and Charlie at the end was also clear at the top of those stairs. So that was another very good station. Just the one task we're querying, but I'm still fairly confident with it at the moment. But we will just move now into the final station of the first half of the day here, which is station 4. Okay, trees, notice that, I only see, there's the building over there, so that tree and that side must be Bravo there, and all the way back there to that tree, I believe, is also Alpha. Between those two trees, is Delta, and I've got the first task wrong here, but that corner of the building, can I believe that that's there? I don't think it quite is. No, I don't think it is. And then that final task is Bravo, and I've just pressed Alpha because that small Alpha in the corner was very hard to spot, and I struggled to see it straight away, and I could only see the Bravo to Foxtrot kites for a long time until I noticed that, and that kind of distracted me for the first task as well, because we wanted a tree the other side of a thicket, and I was convinced that Bravo was on the correct tree there, so I just went with Bravo, and that didn't really affect the second task because we went back to Alpha and it was clear that Alpha was there. But then when we came forward to the third task and I saw we wanted between two trees, I almost put 0 and then noticed that Delta was between two trees which seemed to be in exactly the correct alignment that we wanted, and then noticed that I'd got the first task wrong and we were actually on the bushes that were more southeast than the ones we wanted for the first task. So Delta was definitely an answer to the third one there, and then we went back and had to do a lot more thinking for that fourth task about whether Foxtrot was in the right place on the building, but I am fairly convinced it wasn't, as much as it looked like there was a small corner there, I didn't think it was far enough along from the rounded bit in the middle of the building, so I'm confident that that one is a 0. Before we then came to the final task, and I knew I'd made the mistake from the first task, so I knew it was going to be that kite and then put Alpha instead of Bravo, because I'd forgotten about the small Alpha kite, and Bravo did seem very much to the left hand side, so I thought it was Alpha. But that is how it goes sometimes. That is quite a bad station for me, but it was only 2 mistakes I believe, but we will just have to forget about that now. We're in a whole nother station as we move into the second half of the day here and go into station 5. Okay, bench is going to be a black cross, line of trees and the 2 sets of the buildings. That canopy corner has to be Foxtrot, and then that building, that's the wrong corner, but we come forward and that's the wrong set of trees. Between the tree and the tree, okay, that's going to be Bravo, and then that set of trees is Echo to finish off. And that was a much better station for me there than station 4. The alignment of the map seemed slightly off, but I didn't think it was too bad, and it was clearly noticeable we were in the right place with the canopy and the bulge of the building that Delta and Foxtrot were on. So the first task was definitely Foxtrot on the right corner of the canopy. However, Delta wasn't quite on the right corner of the building, so I thought that was definitely a clear 0 as it was too far round to be in the correct place. And then the third task came up and we wanted between 2 trees. If you go in too quickly you would have gone with Echo, but it was between the wrong 2 trees. It was the closest 2 trees to Foxtrot that we could see, so that was definitely another 0. The fourth task threw me slightly as it wanted between 2 trees again, but where the circle fell I thought it was going to be between the tree and the bench. However, I did then notice the other tree it wanted to be between, and Bravo was definitely in the right place before going to the 2 trees which Echo was between, to rub salt into the wound if you got the third task wrong. But for me that was definitely a much better station there, a lot quicker and definitely no mistakes, so I'm very happy with that, and we'll use this new confidence now to move into the next station, which is station 6. Okay, bridge and all around the island, 2 trees and the other 2 trees on the other side, so that's the wrong island.
and that's going to be Echo. Bench at the back is Delta. That's the wrong end of the bridge, and that is Alpha there to finish off. And it's a 9-second station. We've gone sub 10 seconds, and that doesn't happen often at all. But that for me was very clear. We had an island and we had a bridge going across it, and when the first task came up and we had an island without a bridge, it was a straight 0. There isn't much else to say about that. But then we came across, and I can't really remember the station now because it happened so quickly. But I think the next one was to do with the 2 trees on the right hand side, and I think it was Foxtrot, but I may be wrong there. And then we went to the bench at the back for Delta, forward to the wrong end of the bridge for another 0, as Charlie was on the near end and we wanted the far end, and then across to Alpha to finish off. But that was another very good station. I'm making up for that 4th station definitely here, as we just move into the penultimate station of the day now, and today that is station 7. Okay, buildings and a few trees. There's a clump of trees on the left hand side of Alpha and the staircase. So between those 2 trees is Charlie. That corner of the building, nothing is in. That clump of trees is going to be Alpha, and that staircase corner is Bravo. For that inside corner has to be Echo to finish off. And that was an interesting station with Alpha in the clump of trees. I expected that to be a blob of white, but it was 3 distinct trees as it was mapped, and that made the 3rd task definitely clear as Alpha. We have Bravo on the staircase of the 4th task. The opening task between the 2 trees was quite similar to some of the opening tasks we've had before, but I think it was a very quick Charlie for me straight away, before the 2nd task made me think a lot more about what corner of the building we wanted. But I was immediately thinking 0, and I was right in thinking 0, because Delta was on an outside corner and Echo was on the wrong inside corner that we came to for the final task. So I am definitely confident that that station is fully correct as well, and we are having a much better second half of the day here, but that could all change as we go into the final station of the day, which is station 8. Okay, building the corner, all the kites are far away, so don't forget which ones they are. That building, so that small building there, we have a distinctive tree with a path, so that is the wrong building for definite. That corner of the building, can I believe that's Charlie? I'm going to believe that's Charlie there. Inside corner of the building there is Alpha, that's the wrong place, and that side of the tree okay, so that side of the tree is going to be Foxtrot, and I've made a couple of errors there, which normally happens when I say that could all change as we go into the next station, so I don't know why I say it. But I do think potentially the first task we made a mistake there, as it was either going to be Charlie or Delta, and I wasn't quite reading the map properly. I was just convinced that we weren't in the right area, as I could see the shape of the paths on the building further down where we wanted on the map, and so I was convinced we were on the wrong building. But I believe it's probably Charlie, that first task, and then coming forward should have been Echo for the second task. But we'll see that afterwards. The rest of the station there I think was very good. Let's go into the first station though and see that here what we had to start with was this nice curved running track, and then we had this shape of the wall which I nicely used. So we had a staircase coming down and 2 smaller staircases with the walls coming out with Charlie and Foxtrot on them. And when the map came up and we saw this rounded curve and this sort of wall shape with the staircases, I knew we had to be in this area. So we then had to look out to the left and see whether we can see a bench, and we have this distinctive tree which we've placed with Bravo on it, so that was definitely a good anchor. And we have the black cross of the bench, so we go back and see that Alpha is actually on a bench further back than the tree of Bravo, so we know this is the bench that we want, and we want the western end of it, and with north going upwards, west is definitely the side which Alpha is on. So I thought that was quite a nice Alpha to start off this station. Well did if you did get that. And then for the second task we came all the way forward and we wanted the end of a hedge. However, it's the end of the hedge that's south of this set of staircases, and if we look at Foxtrot, Foxtrot's actually on the staircases, and if we go further right there aren't going to be no kites, so we want the end of the hedge which is out the photo, and that's definitely a 0 for the second task. Then the third task came up and we wanted the western end of the wall here, and we're going to the northern side of the bigger staircase, so we have the 2 smaller staircases and the bigger staircase. The northern side is this wall, and we see Echoes very nicely at the end of that wall, so I thought that was another clear task of Echo for the third task. And then the fourth task came up, and this is where I was already suspicious of side problems, and I should have been here, because
because what we wanted was the distinctive tree which we've placed Bravo on, but we want the western side, not the eastern side. Bravo is definitely on the eastern side, and so this is definitely a 0 for the fourth task. Well done if you did manage to spot that. Actually seems that the 2 zeros in this station for me were the quickest 2 tasks, which does surprise me a lot. They're normally longer, but that's how it went. And then the final task, we came forward and we wanted the southern end of the hedge, but here we actually had the hedge in the photo, so that was definitely Delta to finish off, and that was quite a nice opening station. The 2 zeros, the first one was definitely an easy 0, but the second one was quite hard to spot, so if you did manage to get it all right, very well done. And then we moved on to station 2 here, and we moved to a more interesting area for me, as we had the trees on the left hand side with Alpha, Bravo and Charlie, and then this network of paths with some of these kites being on inside corners of open land. So the first task came up and we had this line of trees that we wanted for this task here, and I could see this shape of paths and noticed that this is the shapes of paths here. Now the map isn't quite aligned to how I want it. I want the map slightly rotated anti-clockwise. However, I could see that these shapes fitted, and so we wanted the line of trees on the left hand side of the photo, which is this line, and we want between the nearest 2 to us. So we look at Charlie and see that that's the nearest kite to us, but there's no way there's a tree between that and the path. So it's not going to be Charlie. We want to go between this tree and the tree behind it, which is where Bravo is. So I do think Bravo is the answer to this first task. Quite a nice opener before we then moved across to the right hand side, and we wanted the western inside corner of the open land. And so we're moving past the canopy into this area on the right hand side of it. So that's the canopy area, and we come into this area, you can see the tree as well, and we're going further to the right, and we want the furthest corner away, which is this corner on the junction of paths, and Foxtrot is nicely placed there. So that's definitely a Foxtrot for the second task. And then the third task came to confuse a bit more, as we wanted the southern inside corner of this building, which to me isn't quite the correct description, as I would have wanted southern inside corner of the open land, but I can let this slide as it's the same shape. However, we can see that Echo's on an outside corner of the building rather than the inside corner, which is nicely there. So there are no kites there. Echo's the obvious decoy, but it's not on the right place. Echo's actually there, so this is definitely a 0 for the third task. And then we were able to go even quicker for the final 2 tasks in this station, as we went between the other 2 trees in this line of 3, which is going to be there and definitely Alpha. And then finally we went to the southern inside corner of the open land of this junction right in front of us, and we look and see that Delta's at this junction and is definitely in the right corner of this junction to be the answer to this final task. And so I was very happy with that station in the end. It was a 12-second station, and I didn't think I was going to go any quicker than that today, but I have proved that wrong. But that one was very good, so if you did manage to do well there, I think you've done a good job. Moving into station 3 though, we had a different view again of this sports stadium area, as we had the running track, and I noticed the bench, and these sets of stairs with Alpha and Bravo on them was definitely a key thing opening up, as when the map came up I could see these sets of stairs on the end of this seating area. So I knew where we were straight away, as that was this area, and here we wanted the corner of the building at the top of the seating area. So we go up the seating area and the corner of the building disappears behind a tree, and as we can see all 6 kites around, that means there are definitely no kites hiding behind this tree, and it's definitely a clear 0. Echo's the decoys is on the corner of the building, but it's down here rather than up the top. So that was a 0 to open up, and as I said before, we noticed Alpha and Bravo on these stairs, so when the second task came up and we wanted the top of a staircase, I'd already known that Alpha was on the third one from the end and Bravo on the second one, and we wanted the third one from the end, so that was definitely a straight Alpha for the second task. Then the third task came up and we came forward to this patch of 2 trees. We wanted the northern one and the eastern side of it, so we've come forward to where we said Echo is, and the 2 trees are going to be the ones next to. Foxtrot's on one of them, and it's definitely on the northern one of the 2, and also on the eastern side of it, so I do think that's a very clear Foxtrot for the third task. Before this fourth task came up, and we had to think a lot more, as this one was the one that took more than half the time in this station for me, and we want a tree up the top of this seating area and the southeastern side of it, and I'm already wondering whether I have got this one wrong, as I am going to count the trees now, and we want the 5th one from this far end. So if that's the first tree, that's the second tree, third tree, fourth tree, 5th tree has Delta on it, so it is actually a Delta rather than 0, and my first mistake of the day here. There just seemed to be a few in this event, but what I thought here was I saw this gap in the stairs going up, and I saw the gap in the rail and went, oh, Delta's on this tree here at the top of that stairs. However, actually, because of the angle that we're looking at it, we are actually seeing through the gap in the top to this tree, and that is definitely Delta now rather than a 0. Slightly annoying me that the map again is slightly out of orientation. However, it's not too badly out of orientation, and so you probably would have been able to solve
that anyway. So well done if you did manage to put Delta rather than 0. I should have just gone with Delta straight away rather than debating over it, because I have got it wrong in the end. That is how it goes sometimes though, but we finished the station with a strong final task, going for the top of the stairs, and it's the top of the stairs above where we said Alpha was, so we're following Alpha up and we see Charlie is nicely placed there. So it's a nice and quick Charlie to finish off this station, and I did think this was a harder station. The angles of looking through did make Delta the hardest task in here, but the rest of it did seem alright. So if you did manage to get that Delta, I think you've done a good job, but even if you haven't, I think that was the hardest task here, so you've still done very well. Moving on to the fourth station though here, and I've definitely made some errors, but I really don't like the way this map has been orientated, and this is possibly the worst one for orientation for me. As we can see here, this building seems to be running closer to us on this side, or even just in a straight line, whereas it's running that way here and a long way off, which may have been what threw me, as what we had for this first task is a tree just the other side of a thicket, and we want the western side of this tree. And so I saw that this tree does seem to be just to the left hand side of the centre of this thicket, and I looked up here and saw this tree is to the left of this thicket, which immediately made me put Bravo after I'd managed to notice that Alpha was back there, and I've only just noticed that arrow, so it was actually clear that Alpha was there. And in putting Bravo, I also noticed these two trees were in the correct alignment here to be those two, so I was happy we were in the right place. However, we do see this thicket down here with this tree and the other two trees also in the correct alignment, and it's a parallel error problem, as I do believe this one is actually a 0 now, and Bravo is actually on this tree here. However, in saying that, because of the issue in the alignment, I originally discounted this because I thought if Bravo is going to be here, the tree's going to be about there. However, if we rotate the map properly, I reckon Bravo does look correct there and incorrect there. That's the main issue for me in this station. I can clearly see now that I am wrong, and it becomes definitely apparent later on in this station that I was wrong for this first task, but I do think that was a very hard opener and the map alignment didn't help at all. But that was the first task there, and then we moved back into the distance to the left hand side of where we put Bravo on either of those two, and we're going back out to a tree, so it's going to be Alpha or nothing. And we zoom in on Alpha and see that it is on a tree, and it is on the western side of that tree, kind of. I think if the map was aligned, it would definitely be on the western side of that tree, and I can just about see a bit of paved area down from Alpha, which means we are crossing some paved area, which is what we need. So this tree is just the other side of the paved area, and I can also see the building behind Alpha, which is that building there. That must put Alpha on the correct tree here, and he's definitely the answer to this second task. So that one was very good as Alpha. And then we came forward and I realised my mistake here coming into this third task was we wanted between two trees, and I looked at it and thought Delta's between two trees, but it's between these two trees, isn't it? Not the two trees there. And then I realised, well, if Delta's between these two trees, where are these two trees? There aren't any trees between this tree and the building, and there are a couple between this tree and the building, but that's these trees here. So Delta must actually be between these two trees, putting Bravo on that tree, not the tree back there. And so I realised that I'd made the mistake for task 1. I checked whether I'd made the mistake for task 1 for definite, and so I was therefore confident the answer to this one is Delta between the correct two trees there. So well done if you did manage to get that, whether you got the first task right or wrong. I think it is very clear now where we are. And then we moved to the fourth task, and we wanted the southeastern outside corner of the building. So the only candidate here is Foxtrot, and this one was quite hard to tell as we look at Foxtrot and see that the building seems to change shape there, although actually looking at the bottom of the building, the right hand side is more forward than the left hand side, so it's an outward corner rather than an inward, and it's so small it's not been mapped. So Foxtrot's definitely not on the corner of the building there. The corner of the building is out the photo, and this one is a 0 for the fourth task. So I'm glad I got that one right, especially since for this final task we go back to the tree which we've said Bravo is now on, and then I put Alpha because I've completely forgotten Alpha existed and thought that Bravo was the leftmost kite. So that is a second mistake from me there because of a mispunch. I was very quick in identifying the kite, I just pressed the wrong button. But again, that is what happens sometimes, and we just have to learn to let that go and just take this all as a bit of fun. But that did bring us to the end of the first half of the day here, and then we now moved on to station 5, which I thought was a much easier station than station 4, as what we had was a bench in the middle we immediately identified, and I thought Bravo and Charlie were around it. I didn't really clock where Alpha was, but Alpha was never used here, so I was quite lucky. I just knew it was there. I noticed Delta and Foxtrot on the building and Echo between these two trees, and the map came up and we wanted a building with a small bulge coming out of it and a canopy, and that seemed to fit the description of Delta and Foxtrot. Even though the alignment was slightly out again, I couldn't see anywhere else we wanted, and there was a black cross of a bench which fitted. So I looked out there and saw that with Delta on the bulge, Foxtrot is on the canopy, and it is on the northeastern outside corner of the canopy, which is the corner that we want. So I was immediately happy there to go with Foxtrot to start off this station. Well done if you did manage to get that. And then the second task, we moved across to the bulge in the building, but here we wanted the northern corner of the building, which is the rightmost of the four corners, and Delta does seem to be on the corner closest to us, which is the middle left corner. So it's definitely not on the right corner, and that is a 0 for the second task. Slightly tricky to spot, but I do think that was very clear, so well done if you did. And then the third task came and we wanted the line of trees on the right hand side of this patch of open land we're in. However, we wanted the closest two trees to the Foxtrot canopy, and looking at it, it's those two trees there, which is not the two trees which Echo is between. Echo is between this tree and that tree, not those two, and so this is definitely a 0 for the third task as well. I thought that was another good problem. This fourth task threw me though slightly, as here we wanted between two trees, and I looked at the circle and thought it wanted between the bench and the tree to start with, but the control description definitely helped it in me noticing actually where we wanted it, as I might have put 0 again. But we're looking for the kite between this massive distinctive tree in the line of 3 and the smaller distinctive tree just to the left of the bench, which is that tree there. So you want between that tree and this tree, and Bravo is very nicely placed between the two, I would say. So I thought it was another good Bravo for the fourth task, and then finally we went between the two trees, which we've said Echo is between. So that was a nice way to round off this station, mainly working in the right hand side of the photo here with two very good 0s. I maybe wouldn't have used Echo as the final task and potentially gone with Alpha or Charlie, as we've already had a 0 relating to Echo, and I think you definitely would have noticed your mistake in that final task, but I still think it was a good station. Before we then moved to a station which I didn't really get a chance to look at all, because this was my quickest station of the day in 9 seconds. I actually did it in 9.8 seconds, but because of the rounding it's rounded down to 9, so it almost wasn't a single digit station, but it was in the end. And what I saw here to start with was a bridge right in front of us with Charlie, and then a couple of trees on the right hand side, very distinctive, and a couple of trees on the left, and that's all I really got before the photo came up and I saw an island which didn't have a bridge coming off it. Straight away 0 in 1.7 seconds. That was the easiest 0 I've ever put, because it clearly was on the wrong island. We want this island here, and then you would have noticed we were the wrong island as we moved to this second task, and then we wanted between two trees again. So if you got the first task wrong, you then would have kicked yourself as we came to this task, as I think you would have put Echo for the first task if you got it wrong, and the answer to this second task is Echo, as it's between those two trees. So that was a very clear Echo for me. I slowed up slightly for this third task as we wanted the eastern end of a bench behind the two trees of Echo and this bridge, and I looked to see whether Delta was actually on a bench, but I believe it is, and it's definitely on the eastern end, as with north going downwards, east is to the left, so that was definitely Delta for the third task. This fourth task was even quicker than the first task, which does surprise me, but it was another very easy 0 for me, as here we wanted the end of the bridge attached to the island rather than attached to the mainland, and so with Charlie on this end of the bridge, it's not the end of the bridge we want, so we want the other end, and so that is definitely a 0 for the fourth task in this station, before finally we moved off to the left hand side to a tree closest to the northern corner of this island, which is going to be where Alpha is placed, as we can see the tree coming out there, and we want the northwestern side of that tree, which is definitely the side that Alpha is on. So we managed to finish off that station with an Alpha. Is definitely no mistakes in this station, and so that is by far one of the fastest stations I've ever done. I don't think I've quite made it to 8 seconds before, but I've done a couple of 9, but that was a very good station. Well done if you did manage to get it all right, because there were a couple of trick 0s in there, and I think if you were going into that very confidently, one of them might have tripped you up. But with that, we then ended up on the penultimate station of the day here, and here we had quite a nice church looking building with a couple of trees on the left hand side with Alpha, another distinctive tree here, although nothing was on it to start with, and these kites in the corners of the building. And then the first task came up and we wanted between two trees, being this lone tree and the rightmost of the trees in the clump which we said Alpha is in. So we managed to place ourselves quite easily, so going for between this tree, and we look at Charlie and see it's nicely placed between the two. So I was very quick to go with Charlie there for the first task. Was actually the fastest task in this station for me, and that rarely happens with an opener. Before the second task came up and we wanted in the inside corner of the building. Now again, because we are on the outside of the building here, I would have used the inside corner of the open land rather than the building, but the description still kind of makes sense, and the only candidate on the inside corner of a building is going to be Echo, as Delta is on the outside corner of the building, on the outside corner of this thicket. However, Echo, as we'll see later, is on the inside corner of the building to the right of the one we want. We want the left hand of the two, which is in there. However, looking at it, I'm wondering whether Delta's actually within 4 meters of it.
So even though it's definitely on the wrong feature, and I believe the answer to this one is a 0, I think delta might actually be within 4 meters, and that's technically not allowed. That may be wrong though, and these just might be massive kites, because a kite is normally about a meter tall. But I do believe the answer to that one is definitely 0, as it should be on the inside corner there, and well done if you did manage to get that. And then the third task came up where we wanted between 2 trees in the clump of 3, so I immediately was looking at alpha, and we want the northeastern set of 2 trees, which is going to be the 2 on the right, and that is the 2 that alpha is between. So that was a nice and quick alpha for the third task, not as quick as the Charlie, but definitely a good task. And then the fourth one came up, and we moved back even further to the southern outside corner of the staircase, and if we're moving back from this clump of 3 trees, we go to this junction in the paths, which is the junction here, and go up to the staircase which Bravo is on, and Bravo is definitely on the south side of that staircase. So that one is going to be Bravo for the fourth task there. Before the final task came up, and we've said before that Echo is on an inside corner of the building, and we've pointed out is the inside corner of the building we are given for this final task, as we want the eastern one now rather than the western. So that is definitely a good Echo to finish off this station. It was another very quick station. The past 3 stations for me only took 44 seconds, which is only just longer than station 4, and I made 2 mistakes in station 4. So I have done a very good job, at least in these 3 stations, to make up for my station 3 and 4 errors. However, this final station I then had a small bit of a nightmare with to start as well, as what I saw when the photo came up was this building aligned east to west as we're looking at it, and these small paths coming out of it, and then 2 containers with Charlie and Delta on one and Echo and Foxtrot on another, although Foxtrot is actually on this tree. And then the map came up and I saw a building running north to south rather than east to west, and so I immediately thought this was a 0 to start with. However, I was looking at this small building and wondering whether it could be one of the containers here, and I eventually decided it wasn't. However, I have realised I am now wrong, as I was believing that this container is that one and this container is one further off the map. That is definitely wrong. This container is the Echo container, and Charlie and Delta on the container we want to start this station off. So we look down there, and looking at the container we want the northwestern outside corner of it, which is the corner on the right hand side and the corner that Delta is on. So the answer to this first task is Delta rather than a 0, and my first mistake in this station. And this was an error which carried forward to the second task, as here we wanted the southeastern outside corner of the western building. However, me now thinking that this square is the container with Charlie and Delta on it, I immediately went with Charlie, as I was too focused on whether Charlie was actually on the right corner rather than checking whether it was actually the right place. So this task is Echo. Now, as we can see, it's right next to this tree, and that definitely fits, and it's also right next to the building, although it seems more forward from the building rather than next to it. The Charlie and Delta container is definitely not the right one, so that one is now Echo rather than Charlie. But then the third task came up and we finally got a task right in this station, as we wanted the southeastern inside corner of this building, and again I would have used paved area because it's an inside corner, we're not actually going in the building. However, it is definitely the corner that Alpha is in here, as we're going to the right hand side of this bit of the canopy, and Alpha is very nicely placed there. So that was a good third task, and I had a very quick 0 for the fourth task, even quicker actually than my station 6 zeros, which I thought were very quick, and this was actually my fastest task in the day here, I believe, as we wanted the northern side of a tree, which is a long way away from where we said Alpha is there. So the tree which Bravo is on is that one there, miles away from this tree which is behind us in the photo, and it's definitely a 0 for the fourth task. Well done if you did manage to spot that, before finally we came to the tree and I realised my mistakes in task 1 and 2, as here we wanted the tree just north of the container. It's the northeastern tree in the circle, and we want the eastern side of it, which is the right hand side. And so I noticed this container and the tree, and I noticed that Echo should have been the answer to task 2, and after a bit of puzzling over it, I then eventually realised that Foxtrot was actually on the right tree and on the right side of that tree, so it had to be Foxtrot to finish off the day. And so it is a time of 180 seconds, but it is 5 mistakes, which adds on another 150, putting my time to 330, which isn't too bad. It's quite slow for what I would normally do, but it will still be fairly high up there in the leaderboard, maybe the top 50. Let's go back and have a look and see where I am at the moment, and we will see that I am currently in 35th, just about halfway through the day. It was definitely a harder one for me with these few mistakes, and I'm probably going to expect to drop below the top 50 as it stands at the moment, but we will see where I am at the end of the day when you join me for the overall results. And we are back to see that I have slipped out the top 50, which we kind of expected when I was 35th halfway through the day. But we have exactly doubled our position, dropping down to 70th place. And we were right about the 330 score with the 5 mistakes, and we got them all right, so we don't need to go check on those afterwards. But 70th place I'm not too disappointed with. We can see though that it's a big congratulations to Aaron for winning the event with a time of 160, including 1 mistake. He was 22 seconds quicker than Ryota in second place with 182, but he was only 3 seconds quicker than Arno in third place with 185. All 3 of them making at least 1 mistake. Aaron did seem to win the event though in station 2, where he won that station, especially with his 4th place in station 1 to open up, and then he really held the lead through most of it, only dropping to second place during station 4 when he made his mistake, but clawed it back throughout the rest of the day, so very well done to him. For me, the most interesting station for percentages here was station 3 here, where pretty much every task was answered correctly by more than 80% of you. However, this 4th task, only 32% of you managed to get it right, being 149, with 288 people going with 0 rather than delta. And this is the first task that I got wrong today, and it was the one where we had to see whether delta was on the correct tree or not. And for me, the alignments told me that it wasn't. However, we have counted the trees afterwards and we showed that delta was in the right place, just it did seem quite tricky to get the alignment right. So well done if you did manage to do that in the time. I think if you looked at it afterwards you would have definitely seen that it was definitely a delta rather than a 0, but it does seem like for the rest of the station most of you seem to know what you were doing. So especially here, it just shows that most of the stations today had one very difficult task, but the rest seemed to go alright. So I think this shows you have managed to do very well in today, so very well done to you. So because we managed to spot all of our mistakes beforehand, we can just go back now and have a look at the overall results for the series so far, and we can see that I've dropped to 13th place after my win on Wednesday, but that's still very respectable at the moment. We currently have Aaron though in the lead after winning today's event and coming 7th on Wednesday. He's got a very strong score at the moment and is 0.3 points ahead of Ryota in second place after he came second today, so it does seem to be the same 1-2 as the positions today, because both of them had a very good score in the first event as well. And then we have Andre in third place, another 0.3 points behind Ryota, before Alexi's almost a whole point behind Andre, and Pavel is then in 5th place, only 0.1 points behind Alexi. So it is quite close at the top of the table, and we have seen that the table can switch around a lot just from one event happening, and with only 4 events in this series I'm expecting this to happen a lot more. So we will follow this to see how it plays out across the rest of the week, but currently very well done to Aaron for holding the lead at this stage. And then we move on to the clubs, and we can see that at no surprise Massey are still in the lead, although they came second in today's event as MTV CSUM managed to beat them, even though they are now sitting about 11 points behind Massey in second place. They have managed to overtake MDoc now, who currently sit a point behind them in third place, and then there's another 8-point gap between them and Linkoping's OK in 4th. So first place seems to be fairly secure, as it always does with Massey, but second place does seem to be fought out between the Germans of MTV CSUM and the Brits of MDoc, so we will have to follow that. It does seem like Linkoping's OK might have to settle for 4th place though, although Ori Estereja are only sitting half a point behind them, and that could be a very well fought battle for 4th, especially since the Portuguese managed to come 3rd today. But that is our current top 5 for the clubs, and then also for the countries we can see that again at no surprise the Italians seem to be winning, although they also came second in this event with the Germans beating them by almost a point. But the Italians are 11 points ahead of the Czechs, who are then only 5 points ahead of the Germans to make up the top 3, and then the Japanese are only 3 points behind them, and the Brits another 3 points behind that. So it's very close to 3rd place at the moment. 1st place is definitely very secure, and 2nd place might be, but as we keep saying, this leaderboard is very volatile and anything could happen as we go into the second half of this week. But very well done to the Italians for holding on so far, and that does bring us to the end of today's event. So it's a big thank you to Julia, Claire and Libor for putting today's event together. I thought it did have the makings of some good Trello and was very good fun to compete in, so thanks again for putting it together. But that does bring us to the end of today's video, so thank you all again for watching. If you'd like to like the video as always, and be subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, making sure you click the bell next to the subscribe button and select all so you're notified whenever I release a video. And as always, be remembering to share these videos. It is World Orienteering Day that we're celebrating here, and the aim of it is is to get as many people into orienteering as we can, and that's only going to happen if you tell people about it. So use these videos as a way of showing other people what this is all about and get them on the simulator competing in this event. And then be making sure to comment down below any extra analysis you think I missed from this video, or any extra small bits you think I should add. And I will join you again tomorrow for the next round of the World Orienteering Day Torus series.